Plate 3. Ship outside, structure. In front of you is a plate that you can use to find out what kind of ships Magellan was traveling with at that time. Explore the whole plate with both hands. In the bottom right corner, you will find a frame with a QR code. You can scan it with your mobile phone and listen to the descriptive text for these records whenever you like. A little higher up, on the right edge of the plate, you will find a small, brown, elongated area. You can also feel two wheels there and, judging by their shape, you will soon realize that you have a car under your fingers. We will come back to this car model later. On the plate you can clearly distinguish two large surfaces of the ship. Imagine you are cutting an apple into two halves. When you do that, you open the apple and inside you find the core with the pit and the apple seeds. Something similar happened on this plate with the sailing ship. It has been cut in two halves. The ship has been cut in half lengthwise. Now trace the bottom half of the ship. At the right edge of the plate, you can see the bow. It is pointed and is the front part of the ship. The ship normally moves in the direction of the bow. Towards the left edge of the plate, you will find the stern. It is larger than the bow and not as pointed. It is the rear part of the ship. We will learn more about the bow and stern later. The bottom half of the ship is the right half of the whole ship, the top half is the left half of the whole ship. So, take the bottom half of the ship and place it on top of the top half of the ship. You have joined the two halves together, the hull of the ship is now complete and the sailing ship would be ready for use. Now put your fingers under the ship on both sides. You can feel the ship from both sides and recognize the same lines and shapes on the underside that you can feel in full width from above. Let's go back to the car model. You probably know how big an average car is. The average passenger car is about 1.80 meters wide, 1.55 meters high, and 4.40 meters long. You have already learned that the Trinidad was 26 meters long and 7 meters wide. Scan the ship and the car and compare the sizes of the two entities. The way the car is standing, it would be moving to your right hand, away from the plate. You already know that the direction of travel of the sailing ship is the same. Back to the ship. Let's take a closer look at it. Start on the right side of the plate. At the top of the ship you can feel a narrow area consisting of horizontal and vertical lines. These are the railings. They protect the upper deck of the ship and you can also feel the railings on the other side of the whole plate. Imagine again that you are standing on the ship and looking forward in the direction of travel. In that case, you could be standing right here, in the front part of the hull, which is called the bow. You will also find the same railings, slightly higher, at the back of the hull, on the left side of the plate. Feel that area as well. If you would be standing in this back part of the ship, you would be standing at the stern of the ship. Compare the different typical shapes of the bow and the stern. What you feel between these folded halves is the upper deck of the ship, where the sailors were exposed to wind and weather during their adventurous voyages. Now you know what the terms bow and stern mean. There are two other terms that are important in a sailor's language. Starboard and port. In the past, the rudder was not in the middle of the ship, but on the right-hand side, which is why it is called starboard. When the helmsman turned to the starboard side, the left side of the ship was behind him. So, it was the back and in sailors' language it got the name port. You probably already recognize the connection with the English word back. So, if you are standing in the front part of the hull, which we call the bow, looking forward in the direction of travel, port is to your left and you can feel it on the plate as the lower railing, the lower edge of the ship. Starboard is the half with which you have covered the other half of the ship. On the right side of the hull, under the railing, you can identify the anchor, a very heavy piece of metal with prongs. It is connected to the ship with a thick rope. It is attached here, and when the ship needs to stop, it is thrown into the water. You already know what bow, stern, starboard and port are and where to look for them. The upper area bounded by the bow, stern, starboard and port is the upper deck. The upper deck, as I am sure you know, closes off the interior of the hull at the top. Feel the whole of the upper deck again, where the sailors were mainly concerned with the sails and steering the ship in the desired direction, and where they were fully exposed to the weather. Now separate the two halves of the ship again, and place the right half of the sailing ship back on the plate below.
If you need more time, just press the pause button.
Now trace the whole half of the ship on top. You can now examine the inside of the ship, similar to the sliced apple. What you can clearly see sticking out of the hull are the masts that carry the sails. You can recognize them as upright poles of different thicknesses. On each of the masts you can feel a thinner mast that is attached crosswise and holds the sails taut. You can also move them as the wind has turned and moved them. Near the top of each of the two masts in the middle you can feel a mast basket, which is also called a crow's nest in sailors' language. This platform served as a high observation point for sighting land or other ships. This is where the sailors climbed up to operate the sails. At the front of the ship, at the bow, and behind, at the stern, you will find another sail pole protruding over the edge of the ship, which was also used to attach the sails. Below the upper deck is the lower deck. It is divided by horizontal, palpable surfaces, just as a house is divided into floors, also known as levels, but without a staircase and stairs. Ladders led to the lower floors, down into the hull of the ship. There were various rooms where people and goods could be stored and protected from the weather. Examine the rooms at the back of the sailing ship, at the stern. Below the deck, the first room was for the captain, which contains a table with 2 chairs. Under this room was an important room from which the stern rudder was operated. There you can feel a rod connected to the left with a standing striped narrow surface, the actual stern rudder. Next to this room you will find a room where the cannon stood. Below that were rooms for animals, there you will find 2 chickens, a cow and a pig. The other rooms to the right were used to store boxes, sacks and barrels filled with various foodstuffs. At the right end of the hull, at the bow, there were rooms for the crew. There you will find a table with 2 chairs. Find the room with the 2 cannons again and in the same line below, on the lower half of the ship, 2 round openings. Like the windows, they belong to the cannon room and were used to fire the cannons when needed.